quorum, so there's no reason not to start.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. So why don't we start with the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, scratch that off. And for approval of the minutes of June 8th, let me write down quorum. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Got Leo and Peter, you second? Leo, Peter, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I should,
Great,
I would,
thank you.
so I'll abstain.
Oh,
Yeah.
that, gotcha. Lauren are abstained. Okay, cool. Thank you. Any public comment, Lauren? Anybody on?
Gus is on.
Okay, good.
So Gus, if you'd like
Hi.
to make public comment, you can raise your hand. Nothing. So maybe he's just gonna wait till the end.
Okay. Lauren, how are you doing? I should have asked that first. How's it going with you?
Okay.
Okay.
Getting better.
Okay. Are you back to the office or?
I am back in the office, but I'm still like not really supposed to be doing a full day. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
We appreciate you. Yeah, take it easy and we appreciate you getting on from home. Thank you very much. First item on our agenda for the 15th is update on status of questionnaires. So we've been having a little bit of a email conversation about should we keep the personal information of anyone submitting something. I'm okay with it. I think that if you have an opinion, you should give your name, I guess. Anybody have any? I think we were all I think most of us were in agreement that we should keep it. Any issues, Peter, Bob R?
No.
No, that's
No.
good. That's the protocol that we've done before, so it's fine with me.
You have. Okay. You know, I just got an email from the town on a questionnaire for the elementary school, Island Avenue. And I meant to open it and look if you had to do that, but I can do that later. So Lauren, why don't we move forward and post the questions
Great.
on the website. For the benefit of the committee members, I had a conversation with Jesse from the local paper, and we had a quick conversation on questionnaire and why and how and all the W's, and he was going to try to get something out based on what his editor obviously would say for this week to maybe advertise it a little bit. Lauren, any other ideas about getting the word out for the questionnaire for the rest of the town?
So your questionnaire, as long, you know, now that I know everything's okay, it'll go out tomorrow the same way that the Island one did. And then we'll share it through all the different social media platforms.
Okay.
So it'll go on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, and any other commentary from the town at all, from town employees at all? Anything new there?
No, but their next meeting is next Tuesday, Bob, the staff meeting,
Okay.
next Tuesday morning.
Okay.
So I'll be sending you a calendar invite for that to get you into that meeting.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Next Tuesday. What time? What
10
time?
a.m.
Okay, I can make that work. If and I'll open that up to any other committee member. If anyone else would like to join me on that invite, happy to have you. I don't want it to be a one-person show, and to have someone else on there too might be helpful if there are questions that I can't answer. Okay, great. And so we talked about continuing. We need a document name for that, for the Bob R and Leo document, that Excel spreadsheet. That's very helpful, by the way. I refer to it all the time, so thank you very much. I thought it was well done, obviously well prepared and very informative. Lauren N., if you haven't been on that yet, it's really a nice job of coalescing all the things that we have found that kind of like some of the things that were broken or not really broken, but you need work on. It came in really handy here, and probably the basis of some of the deliverables that we're going to be able to give the Board of Selectmen. So feel free to jump in that. Someone had I'm sorry, I thought I heard something. And so what about any of the small group discussions that have been going on? And if you want, I can dovetail. When I was reading Gus Horvath's email again on the charter and kind of dovetailing my email that I sent out last week, that I talked to Leo, I talked to Bob Hubbard, I talked to Gene sent me an email on it, talked to Peter on it. I think the only people I didn't talk to were Bob R. and Lauren. But I wanted to follow up on that, even though it's kind of small group discussions about, again, and Lauren R., please chime in. I do think that the Board of Selectmen are going to look to us for a recommendation, whether it's one recommendation or two. I'm not really sure, I think that's okay. But if we figured out some of the problems to be solved, low voter turnout, 2 versus 4 years, all the things that we talked about, and there's a form of government that might help it, we might want to make the recommendation that this could work based on the problem at hand. And then so stop there for a second. And then I go to Gus's email from last week, and he talks about the charter being a living document, and that, obviously we look at it every 10 years. Not that it has to be 10 years before we look at it again. And then, when the voters voted down the last charter recommendations, I don't know how to put this. I'm not scared of offering recommendations, knowing that it has to go to a referendum to be changed, and it might not pass. I know that that's a concern of some, but it doesn't concern me, because I think as we make marginal gains towards and a more effective government, it might take 2 or 3 different referendums to get where we might want to be or need to be. I don't know. Any commentary there from anybody on any of that? I don't disagree with anything that Jean said in her email. Really, I can live with most of it. Maybe we will have a consensus on what form of government we could recommend. I'm not sure that it's a perfect scenario that a specific form of government is going to do everything we need it to do and everything's going to be perfect. I don't think that's not really how democracy isn't that clean as we all see right now, and have been seeing. And then the second issue of the town manager. Everyone we talk to, and again, other than one person, the town manager is favored. And I know we might be talking to a certain specifically small group that wants a town manager. And they know we're talking about a town manager, so they're putting their opinion forth to confirm what we've been talking about. I don't know. Again, that's a referendum item. Gene's right. There's going to be a natural resistance to change. One vote can defeat everything. But that doesn't mean we can't potentially come to an agreement on what might work or what might not work. So, any thoughts at all?
Yeah.
Bob,
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
no, I'm sorry, I was trying to bring in, didn't Al Goldberg say that they were looking for a recommendation when you went back to him?
Yeah, he is. But I respect your opinions, and if we come to a consensus that there isn't a form of government to be recommended, well, that's okay too. I think. I mean, it's not what they desire, but I just hate to punt to the Charter Revision Committee and make that committee, God help them, not have the benefit of all the work, and they will have the benefit of all the work we've done. It may not be in the form of one recommendation. Maybe that doesn't happen. I'd like to think it could happen, but I don't know.
So Gene and I had a comment. Gene and I had the one-on-one meeting and talked about a lot of things, but during the conversation, we talked about the idea of continuing to maybe refine the issues that we're trying to address with a potential change in government or even just a change in the charter. And then once you get the issues identified, one of the things we hit on was this idea that we can work on making a recommendation for a specific form of government to address a specific issue. But there may be more benefit to us giving a couple of 1, 2, or 3 options, because changing the government may not, it may fall flat. We don't want to do that. But maybe something a little less aggressive might be something that the board could grab onto and move forward. So the idea being that if there's an issue that needs to be addressed, we can either give them, this is the best solution, or we give them 2 or 3 tiers of good, better, best. And maybe it's just best is too far to go. I don't know what the answers are, but I think one of my concerns was we may give a lot of thought to it and come up after a lot of discussion as to what the best could be, but it may end up being deemed impractical by the board that has to implement it, and then they've got nothing to fall back on. Counter argument to that is you give them something that's easier to do, they may not try the hard one. So we kind of like went back and forth on this, and
Lauren, what is the board supposed to do, to Bob's point, what is the board supposed to do with our recommendation? Do they have to push it forward to a charter review commission, or they can just say, that's all stupid, we didn't want that? Or what are they supposed to do with our recommendation?
I mean, I suppose they could do nothing, but that is not their intent. Their intent is to take your recommendation and your work and to say to the Charter Review Committee, instead of giving you this task, we created this separate committee that only had to focus on this one really big aspect of the charter and town government, and they did all the work for you. And so now you need to review this and continue the charter revision. So they would actually take whatever recommendation or work that you've done, and they would make the revision to the charter to implement your recommendation or not. But I think the intent is that they would take your recommendation and make those changes to the charter, because that's essentially the work that they should have done towards that one specific goal on the Charter Revision Commission that we separated out because the Charter Revision has such a tight time frame from the state. So we didn't want this to bog them down, and we wanted them to be able to just kind of take your work, implement it, and then focus on the rest of the charter, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a good, Leo. Bob, were you done with your thoughts, Bob?
yeah, pretty much. I was just kind of randomly trying to recall what we talked about over coffee.
Right. The when the last charter revision went before the town in 15, was it the only issue, the extended town meeting?
So there were two
change?
things. There were two big things in that change. So we changed a bunch of circular references towards state statutes that were incorrect. We changed grammatical errors. We made more, we made things whole. We clarified the role of Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, which were kind of those like mid-level changes. But they also did the two big changes, which were to implement the town manager. So it didn't change the form of government to a town manager form of government per se, but what it did is it created a split of the first selectman's role. So it created, the first selectman became a role that had two aspects to it. And should the town decide to go with a town manager, the subgroup B of the first selectman's role would revert to the town manager. So it made it possible that within that 10-year time frame that the charter would be effective, if another Board of Selectmen went to referendum to implement a town manager, all the mechanisms were already in the charter to do that. And then the other item was that extended town meeting form of government, which would have given people 3 days to vote on an item, and it would have, changed voting to always being in person at town campus through the town clerk's office. So those were the two bigger things that actually changed a significant role of something in town government.
And that was voted down handily.
Yes. And I will tell you, most of the public comment that we got towards the end, once they had like their final draft from the Charter Revision Commission, most of the public comment that they got at their last public hearing and that the Board of Selectmen gave them when they reviewed the charter document was related to that extended town meeting form of government, and the fact that no other town has this, no other town was even really considering this, and there were just too many what ifs to ensure that it was fair voting.
Yeah, not that it matters, but I personally wouldn't like that either. And I guess I was with the majority on that one. I can't imagine trying to implement that, especially for the poor town clerk doing that stuff, Okay. So it was not, so Lauren, it wasn't a total up or down, it was separated by those two issues?
Well, the problem is that the document went to the town as a yes or no vote on the whole document. It did not go as separate votes on the different items, which was talked about at the time that perhaps we should split it into 3 votes. So do you approve of the document outside of these 2 items? And then do you approve of this item and the second item? But we didn't. The Board of Selectmen at that time moved to have it go to the referendum as a yes or no on the document as a whole.
Okay. So nothing got implemented. The town manager changed the wording, nothing.
Nope,
okay.
Nothing.
Now I understand it. Okay. I was confused by, okay. All right. That's interesting. Who, I should know this, but who led the charter revision back in 2015?
So in 2015,
and you were here.
Yeah, it was right when I had first started.
Okay.
So the committee actually started at the end of 2014, and they worked that whole year. But the town did it a little differently. It wasn't all outside volunteers. It was actually led by 2 selectmen, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat. And then there were 3 other members of the public.
Was there an outside consultant?
No.
No, huh? Okay. See, now outside consultant who is experienced in a lot of these different changes, that might have been helpful, not just on the advising the committee or the committee, but also strategically, how do you get this approved? Should you split it into 2 or 3 different things? And then how do you implement it?
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to Gus about implementation. I'm bleeding here. So that's a whole other can of worms that we don't have to really talk about. But
yeah, you said this before. I think you made a good point. We shouldn't even consider whether what we recommend can or cannot be approved or implemented, right? Because that's going to be
right.
the next, the way Lauren explained it, that's the charter revision committee's job to craft
Right.
a different message, and the Board of Selectmen have to craft it into the final message. We've got a pretty interesting.
Yeah,
West.
you know, I never want to work in a vacuum, but it's almost like we're trying to figure out what's wrong, how to improve it, what form of government, if we implement something, can fix it. And we're kind of, I guess we're kind of agnostic on how that the charter revision is going to take it. I guess it's more academic than anything else, I think. It's the next committee that really has to do all of it. We're just a small little slice of that. Okay.
And I think that kind of gets back to that idea of giving potential options for solving the issues.
Right.
Because the
Right.
next group has to figure out how to get it done.
Yeah. So Peter, do you know the way Bob R discussed it or described it, we haven't refined the issues, but we've identified a few of the issues, and then we could pick a form of government that solves each of those issues. So for instance, if we have the issue about participation, well, we all figured out by now that an RTM might solve that. As far as a 2 to 4 year issue on the Board of Selectmen term, there isn't really a form of government that fixes that, but we can
That's
make
not a problem.
we can
That's a potential solution to an issue.
well, yeah, you're right. No, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I looked at it as a problem because people complained about 2 years was not enough, and then 4 years it could be too long for some people to commit to something, especially if they're in their mid-level careers. They're not going to take that break, in time at where they are. So, okay, all right. But I wish Jean got on, because I'd like to talk about some of the things that she said, but and then I was reading this morning about Greenwich in particular, and Greenwich, this is really interesting. Greenwich has an RTM, and I just wanted to bring this up for a second. They have 3 selectmen. They have 230 members of their RTM. They have 41,000 eligible voters. And it's amazing to me that they can get 230 members all at one place and try to get some work done. It boggles my mind, because we only have 2 quorums of 75 in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And so what does that come out to, like 180 voters for every RTM member? If we have 13,000 eligible voters, maybe there's 13 members of the RTM, any odd number in case you need to break a tie or something like that. But I just thought that, Lauren, do you know anybody in Greenwich by chance? No?
No.
Everybody's kind of, and we haven't had any real success in getting other folks to talk to us. RTM, it doesn't seem like Simsbury or anybody else wants to chat with us.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like I said, Simsbury hasn't gotten back to me, and I serve on a couple of boards with them, so it's really weird, but they haven't answered any of my calls or emails about it.
Well, I can understand why, for sure. Running a town right now, or a city, is probably pretty darn stressful for any form of government. And they're probably, they're taking care of their they're taking care of their town and their voters and all their residents and things. So So who else met? Leo, who did you meet with?
So Bob and I got together.
Bob.
Oh,
Hubbard.
sorry, yeah, Bob. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Bob
Bob.
Hubbard,
New
okay.
Bob.
New Bob.
New Bob. Right. New Bob. Yeah. So Lauren, you haven't met the new Bob yet. So Lauren Noble, you haven't met the new Bob yet. So he's still having technical issues. So I saw him on. Oh, Bob, are you there? I don't see you.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Arrow over.
Great. Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I went to grid view. Okay. Nice seeing you today on my little hike. So Lauren, this is Bob. Bob, if I knew you were on, I would have introduced you to Lauren. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thanks.
She's in the right-hand corner of the Brady Bunch thing right now. So Bob and Leo, what did you guys, any particular things you came up with between you two?
You want to field that, Leo?
Sure. No, I mean, we had probably a similar, I've got a whole bunch of echoes still. Can you go,
Do you?
Bob? I'm going to dial back in.
Okay.
Okay.
We talked a lot about sort of like I mean, you realize I'm still catching up to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So ours may have taken a little bit different form, but one of the things we discussed were the process we're at, and we sort of talked a little bit about our backgrounds, Leo in engineering and law, and me in law enforcement and government re-engineering, if you will, and the foundation being the problems identified, what is the cause of those problems, and what would be how severe are they, and then sort of that would be the cornerstone, as I've brought up many times, for saying what type of fix would we need? Do we need a fix, or do we need to make a big change or a little change? So I think it was just sort of more the process about taking all of the issues that we've had, we've identified. We went back to the spreadsheet here, and then how do you categorize those to say, well, this type of government might fix that, or we have proven that some other change to our processes or governmental structure is working. I mean, a change from a manager to a first selectman to some other structure, mayor or what have you, that's a change, but how do we foresee that actually changing anything? And the only thing I keep hearing, and I think Leo and I discussed, I think we're both so open-minded. It was great for that. But the only thing I keep hearing coming back to is continuity. It's very hard to take charge of an organization, namely a town or a corporation, if you're only there for 2 years. I've seen bosses in my 35 years of working, 40 years, whatever it is. They come in, if they're only there for a short amount of time, they want to make a big splash with a little event, but the day-to-day operations tend to suffer with rapid leadership changes. I don't see the big difference between a town manager and a first selectman, say, if you were to extend the term so that they get to understand the needs of the people before they race on to the next campaign or get replaced. But it gets back to really identifying the problems or issues, vulnerabilities, weaknesses, areas that could be improved. Is everything broken at town hall? No, I don't think so. Is there? I think the most common thing I've heard was system and administrivia changes. There's a lot of duplicity in record keeping or lack of modernization in the systems, and the townspeople seem to expect a more modern data management, perhaps. That's what I've heard, but I think the substance of what Leo and I really talked about though was really focusing more on the problems. What is the cause of those problems? What would be a solution? And is there a categorical, could you group those issues together into a cleaner package before going up to making a recommendation on a governmental structure? And I think that's why we talked about this spreadsheet is a great document to start organizing that. And as I review this, to break away from our little bit of Leo's in my chat, I'm still not seeing glaring problems per se. Participation is a big one, but I don't know that a change in governmental structure is going to change that. I think communication and finding a new way for our leadership to communicate is better, but I don't see a change in government doing that. That's got to be somebody who got to take the helm that can do that. So.
Great. I'm just taking some notes here.
I mean, Leo, do you think that's a fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when you guys are talking, the one thing I always get stuck on is the fact that you never get a quorum, so you cannot effectively execute the form of government we have. So it's not functioning as designed. It still works because we've been fortunate to have good people in office. But once you get someone who's in office that doesn't want to be good, there's no counterbalance there. So did you guys come up with and changing the government is going to be almost impossible. I'm not sure we'd actually pull it off. So what else did you come up with any other ideas on how to get around that issue with the form of government? And reducing the quorum level doesn't help because that just makes it worse. So
Yeah, you're right.
I keep getting stuck. I honestly get stuck on that. I've thought of, do you open it up to a quorum? Can be, you can have virtual meetings, electronic meetings. People sign in with a password or something. So you can get 75 people all in a GoToMeeting. You can get 150 easy of those. Did you come up with any thoughts? It's the one thing I can't figure out.
You know, hey Bob, can I throw in a thought? Because I've had some conversations with some business leaders, or people involved in corporations for manufacturing, service, insurance lately, and the face of communication among corporations is starting to change in light of the COVID-19. Any corporation that's who has a continuity planning and common operational picture, if you will, for response to challenges, earthquakes, fires, natural disasters, what have you. This COVID-19, all the Zoom meetings, the face chatting and all that has started. I've heard a lot of companies are starting to say, hey, we're able to do this with our people working remotely, and it's actually it lowers our overhead.
Absolutely.
It doesn't expose us to as much vulnerability in terms of disaster or catastrophe, power outages at the main office. You minimize your risk by spreading that out. So people are starting to communicate differently. I've never had family Zoom sessions before, and now we're doing it once a week. So I'm actually having more contact with my distant relatives. And I'm wondering if that's going to have an impact on voter participation too, because now people have been forced into this electronic media. It's a new way of communicating. And that may have an impact on town participation, because if you don't have to get in the car and drive to downtown to get a quorum.
Right,
but
and that's
one Zoom meeting. I think to Bob's point, I think this may change things, and maybe we should just let it play out a little bit, and revisit this in a couple of years, and maybe not 10 years, but say this is changing the way we operate. And I personally tend to be more a fan of the longer term, and perhaps offsetting the selectmen, first selectmen versus board of selectmen, because that gets people more engaged with who their board of selectmen representatives are. And then it sort of takes the first selectman, it eliminates the you go back to the board type of position. It's either you win or you lose. And if you were to offset, you you kind of get people more engaged in the individuals as opposed to voting party line, across the board for the town. So that's my 2 cents. But I think this COVID-19 communication change is going to really impact everything for us.
And
Yeah.
to
Bob,
what you,
Yeah.
sorry, I was just going to say to what you guys are talking about, that's row 14.
Yeah.
And I think Lauren, we've already seen what Bob Hubbard's talking about in other town government, right? We've seen increased participation because of technology. Right.
Yeah, and I mean, increased participation at public meetings, but as far as voting at a town meeting goes, we're still trying to wade through that right now, the legality behind it and how we verify people are who they say they are. I mean, right now to vote at a town meeting, you don't just show up. You have to show up and you have to get checked in by the registrar and then get approved to vote at that town meeting. So we're trying to figure out with our attorney now if there's a way that we can do that through online means, and we haven't quite gotten there yet.
Okay, but the potential definitely is there.
Yeah, the potential is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's great. But don't you think, and to Leo, to Bob R's comment, and I don't mean to be pushing this, please don't think I'm pushing it, but an RTM kind of fixes that as long as you have participation in the RTM. So if there are 13, I'm just picking numbers here. If there are 13,000 voters eligible voters in Madison, and there were 13 members of the RTM, I think you'd get kind of, maybe I'm wrong here, but I thought you'd get some.
That's one of the options. But it's also, I think that this whole conversation goes to what Gene and Leo said. I don't know if it was the last meeting or the one before, about the idea of offering options, which is you can change the government, or we can try for a year or two, what Bob was saying. Maybe to say charter revision for 1 or 2 years to try virtual meetings are allowable for quorum. You need some fancy way of registering who people are.
Yeah.
Maybe I think a poll pass or something with a number on it. This is your voter number for when you log in.
Right.
And maybe that's a way to get the quorum and see if it works. If it doesn't work, then you pull the plug on it. But it's another option for solving the problem. We're addressing the.
I just thought I thought we would get a lot of excitement from the town for people to participate when they know that it's maybe the change in order to, if we're saying to the town, hey, we really think what you really want, we really think what you have to say is important, and we're changing the town government to show you that, and here's how those changes will affect how we govern, and we're going to have greater participation because you're going to be represented kind of like Congress. I mean that excites me as a voter, that wow, hey, this is a change. They want to change because they know that the participation isn't where it needs to be. And you're right, Leo said it, that while it's not broken, it's not really functioning as well as it should, or well as it was intended. Or maybe Bob R said that. But so that's I don't think I know you don't agree with me, but I just thought we'd get a lot of everybody kind of be psyched for it, but I guess not. I know I would be.
But I mean, why would they be any more psyched for that versus council, or versus? I mean, all we're doing is talking about what is the structure that plays the legislative role. Right now, the legislative role is the voters who don't show up. So there is no legislative role. So we're just trying to figure out another avenue to play the legislative role. So is it an RTM? That's an option. Is it a council? I guess that's kind of sort of an option. But these are options. You know,
but that RTM role, that RTM form of government, to me, if there's 13 more people trying to get the electorate out and understanding the issues and knocking on doors and doing all the things an RTM, I'm thinking a member of the RTM would do is to, you know, go find out what the voters are thinking that you're representing. And there's just 13 more people on the street in the town of Madison doing the things that they need to do to get people to participate. Right
Well,
now,
I
we
mean,
only have five. We have
to me-
5.
to me, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get increased participation. You're going to get increased participation by 13 people. So you've got 5 now, and you're going to have 13 more if that's how many members there are on the RTM. Doesn't necessarily mean that the people who vote for those RTM members are going to turn out at a higher rate. If that's what we're talking about, voter engagement, you know, actually showing up to the polls. So again, for me, it just seems to be where are you trying to put the responsibility? So if the responsibility is on a pseudo Congress member to just, you know, to take that easy, well, then that's the RTM. Okay, that's a way to replace the 75 quorum people who don't show up for the town meeting. So there is no balance of power. But you know, to me, I still think we've talked of other options where that could occur, just from a governmental structure perspective. Now, some may have a personal view that an RTM is better than fill in the blank. But okay, but what is the problem you're trying to fix? Again, to me, is still the biggest sort of question. And then, are there other ways to potentially address that? You know, and I think, like, for example, the quorum. Okay, I mean, a way, without a doubt, is reducing the number. May have its problems. I could devil advocate against any proposal that we make if you really want me to. There's always going to be some problem with an option that we come up with, but that is a way. If getting 75 is the problem, make it 5. Okay, well, then you have special interest groups. Okay, well, let me know when that was. There was the tax special interest group 15 years ago or whatever it was. Great. All right, how often does that happen? So are we like solving for windmills, or are we solving for real problems? You know, and so, like, for me, I mean, I think that's more the role, and this is just my view, that's still more the role of the Charter Review Commission, not necessarily us. We might be able to think of pros and cons and list them and all this kind of stuff, but every one of these options that we've discussed is viable.
You could eliminate the quorum altogether and just say that the Board of Selectmen run the town. It's essentially a mayor council, and you don't change anything. But at least it's designing its function, and you put some structure in the charter to, I don't know, control it or bring it to light what's going on. It's a challenge.
Yeah, I never even thought about that, Bob, eliminating the quorum altogether, and that never even.
I'm not a fan of that. I just threw it out there because
No, but it's you just threw it out there, but it's
arguing
still yeah, you know. Okay.
But you know, if it's about getting more to turn out, I think that, you know, of course, like Lauren R has already said, there's difficulties, there's legalities, there's technical issues, there's a whole host of things to expand out different ways with which people can participate in voting. But the fact of the matter is, times are changing, and we've got to change. Companies got to change. If you don't, you're going to get blown away. So, you know, I mean, are the Russians going to care about our little town election? I don't know. Maybe, but you know, it's got to be a little bit easier than a national election, for Pete's sake. And there's got to be ways to do it. And I think, okay, you know, there's people who are in compromised groups, right, that may not want to go and sit online for 4 hours to go and vote. How are we even going to do that? Are we going to like have a scheduled time when you come? I don't know, right? But if you had distance options, if you had an increased window all of these things help with that, right? And if you're someone who's compromised, you know, from a health perspective, now you can still vote, you know, and that alone, I think those types of things, frankly, would get more people interested and excited about voting than, well, now we're not going to use a town meeting, we're going to use an RTM. That might get people excited, but maybe not excited in a positive way. Maybe excited in a, you know, let's get the pitchforks and fires out and go find Leo on Liberty Street, you know? So.
Right.
But-
Okay.
And Bob, you mentioned before about how things are changing, and you know, our whole company has been remote for 2 months, with the exception of production. And it works, it's challenging, but let's keep going. So yeah, it's a different way of looking at how to communicate and get
You know, I'd come back.
I know,
to,
I know it can be done, so.
I just come back to the idea, the notion of making too big of a change amidst a very dynamically changing time, as though we're going to be able to predict what the face of communication is going to look like a year from now. I mean, the world, my world has changed a lot in the last 2-3 months,
Sure.
and it still has to settle out. And I'm always concerned about trying to make change based on what we used to know, because we really don't know what the future looks like right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't disagree with anything that anyone said here tonight. I think there are a lot of good points, a lot of good ideas. Do you think that I'm not sure we can refine the issues down much more than what we've done in our spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You know?
I think we just need to we could probably just take one at a time and say, do we agree this is the best way to phrase it? Give one shot at that, just to refine it, to make sure that, because the phrasing is really important.
I was just gonna jump in. I think we're actually, if the consensus is we just lay out options, which I'll go with that, that's fine. Or things are changing too much that, you know, no one's gonna want to make radical change, that's fine. My issue's always been the whole voter issue and the apathy of it, and trying to get more involvement if we possibly can. So I don't have much interest. I could think it through and have a city manager that maybe has appeal, but my issue has always been voter apathy and getting people to the polls to vote on things that are important to all of us as taxpayers. And the RTM, in some respects, might attract the unaffiliated voter. And I don't think it's 13 people. I think it's more like 75 or 100. And these are probably people, by the way, who are motivated to run for RTMs. And so they're probably going to show and be engaged, I would presume. I would hope that you wouldn't run and then not show up, because you are carrying the proxy, of course. But I don't know that I care if at the end of the day, if what we need to do is get this to the Board of Selectmen, let's just be done with it. Let's take our list, refine it, get the questionnaire, and let's be done.
I
mean,
could
we
start
can debate this all we want to, but there's zero consensus on Hollywood Squares in front of me here. And so I think the option really is that this is what we've learned. And let the Charter Review Commission, some of us might be on that, deal with it.
Yeah. You know, I'd like to present our findings in a, I hate to say this, you know, I used to get killed at work with PowerPoints. And what I'm suggesting is another PowerPoint, you know, to make the presentation. In the Army, you call it death by PowerPoint, but you know, I'd like to start out, if you can kind of make a little bit of a sketch of, here's what we've done, here's who we've talked to, here's, you know, all the meetings we've had, and then draw out the issues, and then draw out the options. And basically that's that could be our final product. You know,
Yeah, I don't think we're that far away. I think this document that lays out the category, the problems identified, the approach, the possible solution, you know, that if that's where we want to come out, that's a pretty good document.
yeah. It's been a lot of work, and we've had a lot of meetings, we've had a lot of chatting, a lot of discussion, and and I'm sure it'll be appreciated by the town for sure. Again, we're all volunteers, you know, so, well, why don't I start a skeleton framework of just the issues? We can do the history, I can do that in, you know, a couple of hours, and get that over to you by the end of the week. And then we can kind of chew on it next Monday night. That makes sense?
Yeah, when will the survey go out, Lauren?
It should go out tomorrow.
Okay, and how long will we give people to kind of get that back? Because
Yeah.
I don't think we can present anything until we get that back.
Right.
Obviously.
Right.
Generally I do them for 2 weeks, but if you want, I could do it for 3. It's totally up to you guys.
You know, well, let's see how we do for 2. And if we can adjust at the end of the 2, if we still get people trickling in.
Okay.
I like to think that we're going to get some feedback based on the public little forums we've had. That was, you know, not, I hope it's not indicative of what we're going to get for the questionnaire. I hope we get people out. And again, Lauren, we'll talk to the town, the employees, and next week, so we can see what those folks have to say, and they can maybe contact me or one of the other committee members if they don't want to talk freely at that time. But again, we'll just encourage them to fill out the little questionnaire that you had, you know, which was fine. And then we'll go from there. Just do PowerPoint skeleton. Okay.
You got a hand up,
great.
Lauren.
Yep, before we go, Gus is raising his hand.
Oh, okay. How do you see that? Hi, Gus.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Okay.
Thanks for getting
Couple
on.
of things. Couple of
Yeah.
things. I think you guys are really closing in on it, but just a couple of things that I just wanted to contribute based on what you folks have been talking about. And to boil it down to, from my perspective, my opinion, whatever you want to call it, there's 2 issues that I've been mulling for many, many years and pushing for change. And one of them is, what should the legislative body be? And I think Leo talked about that, and Bob Reinhardt did. And the second thing is, what should the chief executive be? And those are really 2 separate items. You know, you could theoretically, you'd have an RTM with a town manager. You could have a town meeting with a town manager. You know, you could have what I'm proposing, a hybrid of the 2 in a town manager. And who benefits if we keep the legislative body as it is today? And who benefits if we keep the chief executive the way we have it today? And I think those are a couple of things that you might want to think about. From the point of view of keeping the legislative body as it is today, we average about 4 town meetings a year, and usually 3 out of the 4 are for special appropriations for items that were not specified in the budget. And one of the reasons that happens is that we no longer have a 1% of the budget contingency fund. We continually take money out of our unassigned fund balance, our cookie jar. And who benefits by that? Well, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, because none of them have ever been turned down because we don't get a quorum. So they can pretty much are doing the budgeting process by not worrying about what the legislative body is going to say. And the same thing with the chief executive, as you mentioned that about the continuity and the development of experience. We turn over our first selectman. And don't forget, the first selectman is one vote out of 5. I keep referring to it as an executive committee, and I do that very, very deliberately because that's what it is. The first selectman can't hire, he can't fire, he can't make a decision. When he wants to pass an executive order, as we've been doing lately, the last meeting, the first select person had to go to the Board of Selectmen and ask their permission to extend it for another 14 days or 20, 21 days or whatever. Couldn't do that unilaterally. So, again, going back to who benefits if we stay with what we've got and who would benefit if we change to something else, whatever that might be. And talking about an RTM, and you mentioned Greenwich having 630, 330 something. Darien has 100. There's only 6 communities in the state that have it. So it really isn't something that is widespread. And I think, I made a suggestion of the hybrid, and that's where I'm coming from on that, because it isn't a particularly widespread form of government. If we are going to change, you're talking about a timeline. If we were going to change the form of government, it has to occur with a municipal election under today's state statutes. So if this were to be on the November 21 ballot, the charter change, okay, is on the November 21 ballot, it wouldn't be effective until November of 23. So keep that in mind.
Right.
The point of the town manager, Lauren mentioned this, the town manager being mentioned in the charter in 2015. I'd like to read to you what it says. When I first read it, I couldn't believe it. It's section 7.3, headed town manager. Section 7.3.1 is establish and abolish the town manager position. 7.3.1a, on approval of referendum, the Board of Selectmen shall establish or abolish the position of town manager. So why have it in the charter revision if you give the option to the Board of Selectmen as to whether they're going to implement it or not? I couldn't believe that. To me, it was unbelievable. So, I am very, very frustrated because I've been doing this since 1999, and it probably shows. And I hope that it doesn't turn you guys off, but that's, and why does the town operate well? And it operates very, very well, believe me. It operates very, very well because we have a tremendous staff. And it doesn't make any difference who the yo-yo is, like somebody like me was first selectman. The town operated very, very well. Would it operate better under a town manager? Probably, but incrementally so. We don't need a huge overhaul. The issues are, again, what should the legislative body be and why? And what would be the benefit of changing it? And who should the chief executive officer be and why? And what would be the benefit of that? Sleep tight.
Russ, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. That's helpful. When anything ever happened at work, I'd always say, who benefited from that change? Who lost and who won? And that's what Gus is saying here too, right? So, yeah, good. Okay. Well, I won't belabor the point. I will put together a quick skeleton, PowerPoint wise, just like the second half of what we're talking about versus the history of what we've done over the last 3 or 4 months, with that quick break in there for the virus, and get it back over to you guys, and then we can chew through it for next Monday, and then we can probably look at our timeline for delivery to the Board of Selectmen. Once we get some of the feedback, maybe more feedback from the town employees, and then maybe some feedback from the questionnaire, we can add it to the PowerPoint if it's any of any use. Hopefully it is. And that would be it. Lauren, while Gus was talking about the November election, does the Board of Selectmen think that the Charter Revision Committee is going to be done with their work by November?
No,
Okay,
Fish.
no, it'll be the following November, it'll be 2021.
okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, good. Okay. Anything else to come before this, our meeting tonight? I want to thank everyone for their opinions. I want to thank everyone for their participation. It's really great. We all don't have to agree, and that's okay. It's what makes democracy, what democracy is all about. So I appreciate it. Other than that, I'll take a motion to adjourn at
Motion.
7:10.
Motion to
Great.
adjourn.
Is there a second? Peter, thank you.
Second.
Peter. Okay. All right. We are all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? Great. I'll be in contact with you during the week, and I hope everyone has a good one.
You
I'm gonna
too.
try to keep enjoying the weather as much as I can. I hope you do too. Have a great week.
Well
See
done.
everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you.